Throughout the past half-century, the pendulum of time has swung full cycle. Russia's phoenix, Vladimir Putin, has rose from the ashes of the Cold War to bring Russia back to the center stage of world politics. Creating a legacy that will rival even that of Joseph Stalin, his leadership has sent shockwaves around the world and inspired a defeated people to once again take the journey to global dominance.
The snow falls on Soviet Leningrad, the soldiers returning from the front lines of World War II. Injured and scared from the battle, he wanders the streets trying to find his way home. A wagon full of bodies of the starving people of Russia rolls by, and as it passes, the man recognizes a boot dangling out of the back. He approaches a wagon and pulls the body of his wife out. Miraculously, she is still breathing and she is carrying their child. The soldier nurses the wife back to health, and months later, the baby is born. Little do they know, but that child will grow up to become one of the world's most powerful men. This story of incredible timing and luck is a story told to Russian children across the country. Propaganda like this is spread across Russia. Vladimir Putin in the popular Russian comic Super Putin is depicted as a larger-than-life superhero capable of anything and everything. Although this is not true, the facts behind, as Time magazine stated, the mad of modern times are definitely worth hearing. Born on November 7, 1952, Vladimir Putin was raised by an old World War II veteran in very impoverished state of life. He was the youngest of 3 brothers, but only he survived past 1955. Putin attended a small school in Leningrad, and after he graduated, he attended Leningrad State University. There, he met an assistant professor of law, Anatoly Sobchak. The two became very close friends, and Anatoly Sobchak directed Putin to pursue a degree in international law. He graduated from the university in 1975 and joined the Soviet intelligence agency, the KGB. Putin spent years training with the KGB and went on various intelligence gathering operations with Russia. Between 1985 and 1990, he was stationed in East Germany, and then in 1991, on August 20th, he resigned from his duty. Throughout his career, he saw the collapse of the Soviet Union from the inside.
On a much broader scale, during Putin's early life, the world was at constant war. The Soviet Union had won the Eastern Front, and the Western Allied powers had defeated Hitler in the West. Even before the war had ended, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union arose. After Japan signed the Treaty of Surrender in Tokyo Bay on September 2nd, 1945, the war was on. Stalin and the USSR had to develop nuclear technology as fast as they could to keep up with the United States. In 1949, 5 years before the US predicted, the Soviet government successfully tested their first atomic weapon. This test was followed by a stagnant arms race of weapons of mass destruction. Vladimir Putin grew up in this time of great tension. Both countries were pumping millions of dollars into weapons as well as propaganda. In 1987, the Soviet Union began to crumble away, and as the Berlin Wall fell, the Union fell with it. As more states dissolved from the Union, the economy of the region sank drastically. The result of this chaos is a globe dominated by the Western power. The United States and NATO were victorious. After this collapse and his resignation from the KGB, Putin was desperately in need of work. Like his country, he was hungry and defeated. He turned back to his old friend, Anatoly Sobchak, who was now the mayor of St. Petersburg, which was once Leningrad. Putin was appointed as the advisor of international affairs, where he worked very closely with Anatoly. In June of 1996, Vladimir Putin was called to Moscow to serve as the director of the Presidential Property Management. On the 26th of March, 1997, Putin was appointed to the presidential staff, and by the end of the year, he was chief of the presidential staff. On July 25, 1998, Putin was appointed to be head of the FSB, the successor agency to the KGB. His final step was in August of 1999, when he was inaugurated to be the Prime Minister of Russia under President Boris Yeltsin. On August 16, 1999, He was elected on a vote of 233 to 84. Vladimir Putin was now within striking distance, but an unexpected turn in events would lead him to power much sooner than he anticipated.
On the night of New Year's Eve, 1999, a shocking announcement came out of Moscow. President Boris Yeltsin resigned, which left Vladimir Putin in charge of all of Russia. This unexpected change of power didn't stun Putin. He had four major obstacles throughout his first term. The first obstacle was in August of 2000. A Russian submarine broke apart during a routine training procedure, and all of the 130 crew died. The incident made international news. This was only a minor dent in his presidential term, and in a few months, the world had moved on to more important news. The second major obstacle that he faced was in 2002, when a terrorist attack on a Moscow theater happened. Although 133 hostages died, the Russian press credited Putin with a decisive victory. The third problem that Putin faced in his first presidency was the Chechen War. In this war, Putin and the Russian army successfully destroyed a majority of the rebels, and although there were still acts of violence, the war was declared won in 2002. The final problem that Putin had to face was the dying Russian economy. This was where he excelled. Between 2000 and 2004, Russia's economy's GDP jumped 600%. The tax rate decreased from 35% to 24%. Russia has become the world's seventh largest purchasing power. Putin also increased education funding by sixfold and has nearly half the number of murder rates. This was a complete 180 from the dying Russia of 1999.
In the short term following his rise to world fame, his awards vary from being Times Man of the Year to winning China's Confucius Peace Prize. His opposition to the West through economic means and diplomatic loopholes has brought light back to the Russia that once rivaled the Western world. His extreme opposition to NATO has had strong consequences, both positive and negative, for the world. His massive expansion of pipelines into Europe in 2002 led to the huge decrease of oil prices, which kept Greece from breaking apart. At the same way that it helped, Vladimir Putin asserted his dominance by showing Europe that he holds over 80% of their oil in his hands. He also increased Russia's military spending in 2003 by 300%. This growth of military and expansion of economic influence was cause for large concern in the Western world. His policies were so popular that although a president in Russia can only serve 2 terms, the legislature passed a law allowing Putin to serve a 3rd term. This push for a 3rd term upset many citizens, but ultimately Vladimir Putin still won the popular vote by 64% of the vote. In the short term, Vladimir Putin has turned Russia around from a dying autocracy to a world superpower.
The long-term legacy of Vladimir Putin is still unfolding, but one thing is for certain: his legacy will rival that of the notorious Joseph Stalin. Putin has left an impact on the world, and has already changed the maps across the globe. In response to this power, the United States pulled strings in the Middle East and flooded the market with oil. This flood meant decreasing gas prices in our country, but has drastically hurt the Russian economy. In economic retaliation, Russian companies have fired workers across the world because the Russian ruble has halved in value over the last 6 months. This has hit us at home, in Pueblo, as one of the largest employers. Evraz, a Russian company, recently laid off 200 workers. The legacy of Putin is still unsure, but we can count on much more aggressive economic and military action being taken from the once dormant giant.
Over the past century, the world has seen some of the bloodiest conflicts in history, and behind it all is the drive to become the next world power. In 1945, the United States thought that they had the world in their hands with nuclear technology. They couldn't have been more wrong, and they paid for their mistakes with decades of conflict and tension, which bankrupted both countries. In 1990, the United States thought they had finally defeated the Soviets, but as we see today, we were wrong once again. How will we pay for our mistakes now?